You're listening to Diva Tonight with Carlene Humphrey, a relationship podcast with a focus on life, love, and friendship. Welcome to Diva Tonight.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight. We are here on Zoom with the lovely Amy Reiley, and she is the first guest that I have who is a food critic, analyst in a way. She's an author, and she knows a lot about food and how to make it sexy. So how are you?
Great. Thank you. That was a fun introduction. So yes, that's what I do. I make food sexy.
Yeah. I guess the term for it, you did go to school for this. You have a master's in, what's the term? Gastronomy. There we go. Gastronomy, which is like your gut. But you know what?
No, it's the study of food. But I do also have my nutrition coaching certification. So I looked at both sides.
You know, what's interesting is that your story comes from the fact that, it's always when we have a health scare that changes the way we eat, the way we do certain things. So I understand that too, because I had a wake up call a couple years ago. And, I guess we ignore the warning signs. I don't know if you had any warning signs that you might have ignored, but I was I'm anemic. So my iron was low, but I'm like, wait a minute, going up a flight of stairs, Amy, with I'd be winded. I'm like, wow, I'm so out of shape. But that wasn't me being out of shape. It was something else. And then I found out later what was wrong. So, but with you, I guess you can explain
I really try to help people become more aware of their relationship with food before the wake up call, right? We don't need to get to that point to make a different relationship with food. We can have a really great and healthy and tasty relationship with food, without having to get to some, I've got to change my ways. So what I do, my whole subject is the relationship between food and romance and food and sexual health. And so I really like to help people just become more aware for themselves. And then, of course, for it applicable to a romantic situation of how, where these things go, how they feel in your body when you're eating things, what happens. In fact, I have a website called eatsomethingsexy.com, and I have this thing called the Sexy Snack Quiz. And it simply helps you see how something as simple as the way you snack, the style of snacker you are, how that changes your whole day, how it changes your energy throughout the day, how it changes how present you are, and at what point in the day you're not present. And of course, I put it, through the lens of romance. How are you going to be there how are you going to have desire or be there present with your partner if you're just in a slump? But yeah, I think that we can all think about that a little more every day rather than waiting till the big thing happens, right?
Yeah. And I think, some people are more aware than others. Some are consistently, they have a routine down pat, where some people like myself, where I go in between, where when I have my cravings, I just love to eat a bag of chips. But there's also days where I'm okay, rice, lentil, peas, and I'm going to have a fruit smoothie, you know what I mean? But I'm always playing catch up, so I know all about that. And I think what's important is the fact that you are an aphrodisiac chef. And so I guess you help couples, which is really interesting in that sense, because I was listening to an interview you did, and the theme seemed to be more about Valentine's Day. And I was I was just wow, we are definitely having a theme here, which is so cool, because there's a lot of, celebrations that we have, you know what I mean? And as a chef who's creating new ways to help people find pleasure with food and not make it I have to eat quinoa, all the things that are hard. So if we're thinking about the Super Bowl, just as an example, what would you suggest for women in their 40s, men, couples to make that might be a little bit healthier?
Okay. So yeah, I've never considered Super Bowl before, because obviously it's not a romantic holiday. It doesn't have the opportunity. I can spin most holidays as, why don't you have a Thanksgiving for two? Why don't you have a quiet New Year's Eve for two?
Okay.
I'm not sure. I've never spun Super Bowl before. But if you are both, huge football fans, if your team is in the Super Bowl, maybe this could be like a way to connect with your partner because you have this thing that you're connecting over, right? And it's not like I'm preparing a romantic dinner and I have to get it all right. This is low pressure. So it could actually be a really good romantic moment. That being said, I would probably throw out the average Super Bowl menu because the Super Bowl parties I've been to, although I'm happy to eat those foods, I love a good pig in a blanket, but these are not foods that are going to support your sexual health, make you feel like tearing off your clothes, or anything in that realm at all, right? So, or benefit your health in general. I don't know. Queso is not delicious, but aren't
I was just thinking when I was listening to you talk about all the things to support sexual health and make it sexy on Valentine's Day. And I'm like, well, I don't want to time this. I want it to be so that it could be for many different occasions for, couples who are listening, people who are going on dates and trying to figure out creative ways to make things interesting, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of a pig in a blanket, I actually have a recipe in my first cookbook, Fork Me, Spoon Me.
Okay.
There's a recipe for figs in a blanket. And I don't know, you may have a little trouble finding figs in North America this time of year, but if you can find some figs, they're prosciutto wrapped and grilled. So you're getting that salty, meaty flavor, but you're also eating a fig, which is a fresh and healthy and fiber-filled food. So, you can make choices like that where you don't feel like I'm being deprived. I'm still eating my processed meat.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm eating it maybe in a better way. And, we can find other things. I have a really great chili recipe and you would never guess it, but it is completely meatless.
I like that.
It involves chocolate. It's a fantastic recipe. You can find it on eatsomething.sexy.com. I think it's called like meatless chili with chocolate or something like that. I'm sure I made it a sexier name, like chocolate kiss chili, maybe? I don't know. But you'll find it there.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. You're still having your kind of traditional bowl of chili. You could throw your cheese on top if you want, or your dollop of sour cream, or whatever it is. I have to say, I do like a little sour cream and some chopped, green onion on top of my chili. But it's low in saturated fat. It's not, how sometimes chili has that like grease layer on the top. You're not going to get that. You're going to get a delicious, satisfying bowl of chili. So that's something you could do. Make some cornbread on the side. You've got a meal.
Yeah. Wow. I like that. That's fun. So for those of us who are not familiar with an aphrodisiac, what is an aphrodisiac?
So an aphrodisiac food is basically a food that somehow promotes desire. And, technically the definition is it's a food that improves sexual performance or sexual desire. But basically it's any food that has a strong link with romance. And some of that is like history and folklore, things like when you think about an oyster or chocolate, these are foods that you think are supposed to be associated with romance or sex or seduction, right? So there are certain foods that it's probably partially psychological. But there are other foods that simply are really good for your sexual health, like kale. I'm sorry to say it. Kale is great for...
Oh my gosh. Because I said quinoa earlier.
Right? I was thinking about that. I was like, the boring things. You know what I do? I put kale in my guacamole. Like I blend it in.
Oh.
So you're getting a little kale and it still tastes like chips and dip.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I don't eat a lot of avocado, but whenever I talk to my grandmother, she just loves avocado. Maybe that's why she's living such a long life, but she's also in sunny Grenada. But I digress when I say this, but avocado I like it, but I don't make it a part of my diet, but I feel like I should. I like guacamole and it's good with chips and dip, right? So I guess maybe you can suggest
Actually,
guacamole.
Both guacamole and salsa are beneficial to your sex life, believe it or not.
Really?
Avocados they are historically considered aphrodisiac. They have a sexy history as an aphrodisiac. Wow. They also, it's a textural sensation too, right? It's so creamy, but it's got all that fat. So it's got this lovely, the way it feels across your tongue is kind of delightful. I love an avocado. And then, tomatoes, actually. So actually pretty much everything in salsa. Chilies help raise your body temperature, which, can help you feel a little more ready to tear off your clothing. They can also make your lips plump up a little. And to someone across the table, it'll be like, I need to kiss those lips. I need to kiss those lips.
Wow.
Yeah. So you kind of can't go wrong, believe it or not, with a little salsa, a little guacamole.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's important to talk about food when it comes to like the topic of this series that I've been working on, because it's like women in our 40s, right? And men too. I've started to talk to men as well. And I think the whole thing is like understanding that at this age, we can't eat what we love. It's not to say we can't eat those fun things, but we have to limit it, because it's not like I'm 25 anymore when I would just like go to like a party and, like you said, have all these like pizza, whatever, have a few drinks, and like you're not seeing the change. But at this stage, so many things are changing in our bodies, right?
And so also our activity levels are often much lower for a lot of us. Our activity levels are lower than when they were when we were 23, 22.
Yeah.
And so that's a consideration as well. For me, it's about like, how do I feel? Like, I just want to feel good. I still eat jelly beans. I love my jelly beans, but I at the end of the day, I want to feel good. I want to have energy for a full day. I want to have energy to be present with my partner. I want to have energy to be able to tuck my kids in bed. Although, to be honest, lately they're getting older and most nights I'm in bed before them. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I see that your kids are getting up there. Like, you mentioned one of your kids is 8, right? So
10.
10. He's 10 now. Okay, so I think that was a year ago. Time flies, right? 2 years. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we have all these changes, and we have different obligations as well. And sometimes I think it's just the stress of those obligations. You need to eat to be supportive of those things. You need to be supportive of where you are emotionally as well. And so I really encourage everyone to become conscious of it. In fact, I have a free gift for you guys. I have a free.
Oh, I like free. We like free.
It's a podcast exclusive. Go to eatsomething.com/podcast.
Okay.
And I have for you there is just a little exercise that helps you become a little more aware. It's to help you understand the concept of aphrodisiac foods and like the use of food and desire. But it's really all about the awareness of what you ate, how did it make you feel, what foods make you feel better, what time of day do you want to eat them. So it's a fun little exercise. Go get it. eatsomething.com/podcast and tell me what you think.
I will definitely report back. So you're saying it's all about like, how food can be an aphrodisiac to heighten those endorphins. So how does that work when it comes to changing your diet for sexual health?
So my starting point where I tell people to do is, this is going to be a little different for men than for women.
Okay.
Obviously, we have different needs. We have different hormones. So I have lists, again, on my website, Eat Something Sexy. I actually have a list of my starting point foods, my 10 best foods for women and my 10 best foods for men. And these, of course, aren't the only foods that are going to help you, but it just gives you a place to start.
I saw that. Yeah.
You don't have to eat, obviously, you don't have to eat all 10. Not everyone likes all 10. In fact, I'm working on a book that kind of goes from that point forward, a men's book and a women's book. And I will be, of course, putting all kinds of, like, if you don't eat almonds, then you can try, these 5 other foods. Because I know we all have preferences and sensitivities and allergies, but it still becomes a great starting point. Even if you're only going to eat 8 out of 10 of those foods, check out, what foods are really beneficial if you're a man and which ones are beneficial if you're a woman.
Most of my listeners are women and some are men too. I'm starting to see that. So when you think about foods to help men's health, let's do that. Let's, you know what I mean? Change it up a little bit. Cause I think that's important. Yeah.
Sure. So for men, there's a little more emphasis on protein foods.
Okay.
I put bison on the list because I want to help people move away from beef a little bit, but if you still want meat, it's a fantastic choice. It's a little more expensive. Bison is higher in protein and lower in saturated fat. and equally satisfying to beef. So, why wouldn't you make a choice like that? But other foods, there are obviously foods to promote testosterone production. Like I mentioned almonds earlier, that's on the men's list. And oats. Oats are fantastic. Oats are great for everyone, but they are particularly great for men's sexual health. So, so you can see there's a variety of foods on these lists. It's not all vegetarian. It's not like strictly healthy things.
You know what I find?
Dark chocolate made the women.
Yeah, dark chocolate. So tell me something about that. I feel like it's an acquired taste. I love how people are like, dark chocolate is so good. I've had dark chocolate. I'm going to be honest, Amy. I'm not going to be like everyone else and be like, I love dark chocolate. Every time I have dark chocolate, I'm like a kid when it comes to certain foods. Like I still eat my favorite gummies like I'm a kid, but I tried dark chocolate and it has that bitter taste that I don't know how I can incorporate that and make it like not so like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, so, like unless there's different ones.
Both of my kids. So in our house, if we get a box of chocolates, I know that all the dark chocolates are going to disappear and everyone's going to leave all the milk chocolates.
So you've incorporated,
I also understand that. Like I grew up on Hershey, so I understand that taste for that melty, delicious, sugary milk chocolate. I get that.
Yeah.
It doesn't appeal to me as much any longer, but I think that there are ways to move into the dark chocolate. Maybe start with like, how a lot of times they'll put the percentage of cacao on the bar. Start at 55% maybe. Just go a little bit darker, a gateway chocolate, we'll call it. Start with the gateway chocolates and then move on. You can also do things like use desserts that are sweetened, that are the chocolate is cocoa powder and then sugar rather than, because, cocoa powder is really, it's also very healthy. You're getting all of those benefits because it doesn't have all of the added sugar, added milk, all of that. I'm thinking I have a recipe on my website for a dark chocolate tofu mousse. And I know you're like, oh, what? No, it's so delicious. It's so chocolatey, but it's super dark, intense, dark chocolatey.
Wow.
So that might be another way to introduce it for you. Or if you do like making desserts, make them with like dark chocolate chips instead of semi-sweet or milk chocolate chip. That's another way to get dark chocolate in.
Diva Tonight. Glamour for your ears.
So, we're talking a lot about food and how you're like a food specialist and like, you help others find the sexiness in food for men and women and making date night a little more romantic. You know what I mean? And so what was it like when you were a kid though? I'm wondering, cause were your parents chefs? Like what led to here and now?
I think for me, it started with baking. We had this thing where we had this rule in our house. We could have one package of cookies. We all had to go to the grocery store together, which I can't even imagine families doing now. But we could pick one package of cookies and one package of ice cream per week. And we would take turns. One would be my week. One would be my brother's week. Now, first of all, I didn't like the majority of packaged cookies. They just tasted crappy to me even as a kid. But I did like the ice cream. However, whenever it was my brother's week, he would purposely pick something that I didn't like so that he could have the whole carton. So I quickly figured out, well, we have butter, we have flour, we have sugar, we have cocoa powder, and I learned how to bake. So my brother could have his crummy ice cream and his crummy cookies, and I baked things.
Did you share with him? You're like, no, they're mine. I baked them for myself.
If I shared I do remember doing a lot of baking.
Yeah. So what did your mom do? Did she bake a lot? Was she like a stay-at-home mom or what, She was a now almost entirely stay-at-home mom. She was like a work 5 hours a week kind of mom. My family had a business, so she did the bare minimum. So she was mostly there for us. She was not a baker though. No, she made a homemade dinner every night, but baking was not really her thing other than at Christmas. Yeah. Yeah. So the creatives come from somewhere, but I guess there is some entrepreneurship in your family because you said they had a business, right? And so I always say it's not where you're going. It's where you came from that led you to here and now. And I always try to tie the two together because I find like it's either some contributing factors to the way that you were brought up that brought this on, or it was just an interest in itself, but you've been baking. So, whereas with me, I didn't like that home ec class, I guess, that we had where you had to it was a good class. They taught us how to sew. I don't know if you had that too. And how to I know how to make Rice Krispie squares. And I think that's the one thing I stuck to, right? Because it was so easy. But,
and I learned how to make a pair of shorts.
Right?
But yes, that did not, and none of that got me to where I am now for sure. Or to being better, like a better, I don't know. I mean, what were they trying to do? Make me a better homemaker. None of it worked, but the aphrodisiac thing is now working for me. Certainly my experience in desserts has paid off in addition to, my own books. So I actually have a cookbook publishing company, and I've published other cookbooks as well, including like what I think is the best-selling bundt cake cookbook of all time. It's called Kiss My Bundt, and the recipes are magnificent. And certainly if I hadn't had I don't think I would have been prepared to publish that book had I not had all those years of baking behind me. So, it works.
Yeah. I mean, you could have.
It didn't help, but.
It didn't help. But Mark, okay, so now that we're talking about like your history with baking, did you have a favorite chef that you watched on TV?
Oh, I liked, and I think this was when I was in high school though. What was it called? It was called like Great Chefs of the World. And it was not a like how to cook show. It was like famous chefs in their commercial kitchen making some ridiculous thing with like molds and torches and whatever. I loved watching that.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think like we all like watching the food, like a lot of people do. I love watching the Food Network. Like I like watching Bobby Flay. Like I love watching competitions with him, and like there's so many other great competitions. But regardless, we have to eat to survive. And at the end of the day, it's 2026. And I say this, that, people make resolutions. I don't like resolutions so much. I like goals. And so if someone is listening and they're a female in their 40s or they're a male in their 40s and they're looking for ways to make healthier options that are also helpful for those intimate moments, you know what I mean, to improve those, like what is the main thing? What is the first good food to eat on a date, right?
Okay. Well, first of all, the it's important thing, if this is for a date, is like if you're going to be cooking for someone, think about what they want. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like I could tell you all kinds of things, but if the person you're cooking for doesn't like those things, like don't even bother, because it doesn't seem like you're not. It seems like you're not totally there if you're making them something that finds. Like if they don't like fish, don't make them fish. Even if I tell you the best thing that you could make is salmon, don't.
Okay, so let's have an example. So you're married and your husband, you guys are having a date night. What would you make for him? So
for my husband and I have very different tastes. So that is always a struggle. It actually is. I have a recipe, and I discovered that when I was working on my first cookbook, this is how we wound up together. I was working on Fork Me, Spin Me, and he was this guy I knew who didn't cook. And like work long hours. And when you're creating a cookbook, you do a lot of recipe testing. You end up with a lot of extra food. And believe me, after you've tested a recipe like 4 times, you don't want to eat that food again, right? You just don't. So I kept calling him and inviting him over to eat all my leftover food from my aphrodisiac cookbook. And that's how we wound up together. But what I discovered during that time is he loved, of all things, a recipe in the book called moist mango meatloaf. So it's a meatloaf that is the moisture element in it is chunks of mango. And I don't think he would ever touch mango outside of this recipe. He's not an adventurous eater. He eats maybe 4 different fruits, and that's probably like his little lane.
Oh, that's why you said he's very particular. Yeah.
And so, but he loves the moist mango meatloaf. And I actually even have these little heart-shaped molds. So sometimes it's sort of like a romantic joke. I'll make him little heart-shaped moist mango meatloafs.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I like that. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I have to figure out what the person likes to eat if I'm cooking for them. So if they like pasta, let's just assume that they like Italian food.
Sure.
What's a healthy Italian option?
Yeah, see, this is Italian, the way North Americans eat Italian, shall we say.
Yeah.
We're a little careful about the fact that it's like filler food. You know what I mean?
Right, it is.
I mean, there's nothing wrong about having a big dinner with pasta and red sauce, or cream sauce even. But if your goal is romance, if your goal is to like move on to the bedroom or throw everything off the table and get it off the table, whatever it is, you're not going to want to have a giant plate of fettuccine Alfredo.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Okay.
So I generally will recommend pasta's great. There's nothing wrong with it. Try to maybe either use it as a side dish or maybe ravioli that's like stuffed with something more energizing, mushrooms, lobster, something, that isn't more carbs on carbs. Things like that are how you can use pasta for a romantic meal.
And so, they always show, like, there's one thing I find they always show it in movies, like strawberries with chocolate covers and like, Pretty
good.
Yeah.
I will say I like interactive things for a romantic dinner. Like having fondue, although you have to watch because fondue can get really heavy really fast. But something that's interactive like that where the pressure's kind of off, like, oh, we're having a romantic meal, we have to be romantic. No, you're actually concentrating on like doing something while that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. And I think that's particularly good maybe both for the new relationships and the ones that are just the people who are so comfortable together that it's almost awkward to say, we're having a romantic meal now. Like everybody has to be at that point, right?
Yeah.
Having something where there's an activity, not a bad choice. You're dipping your strawberries in chocolate or your cheese fondue or your meat, you're cooking your meat in the oil or whatever it is. That is not a bad idea at all. Just be careful that you have other foods, that your whole dinner isn't bread and cheese. Because again, you're just going to want to go to sleep as soon as it's over.
Yeah. There was something I wanted to ask. It's like I think you just answered my question, but like, what are foods that you should not eat on a date?
That's funny. I went to, it was a work lunch with people who were complete strangers to me. And I looked at the menu and I was like, gosh, I really want the tacos, but I'm going to look really awful eating them. And the person next to me laughed and said, I'm here for you. Like, I'm here for you. You get your tacos. So yeah, there's that. You kind of be conscious about like foods that are so messy you look unappealing while eating them. Like I think about that for myself. This is a habit now. And it's not a vanity thing. It's just, it's just when you're trying to impress or romance someone or when you don't know people very well, it's probably a good consideration. So there's that, but it's mostly about don't eat foods that are super heavy. Don't eat anything that when you can think back, like a big pot roast, anything you can think back and say, yeah, the last time I had that, I was like in bed by 7. That's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we're aging, so the one other thing is like, in your 40s, like your metabolism isn't working as fast. And so for women, like, your progesterone and your estrogen levels are a lot lower and you're noticing things like your mood. And so as a mom and a wife, what have you done to change your eating habits?
So for me, I'm going to be honest, I have more coffee than I used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was never a person for whom coffee was a necessity. It was actually something that I just enjoy.
Yeah.
It's like I wake up and for better or for worse, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm being honest about it. I also have a big glass of water. That's the other part.
They always say that. It's important. Yeah.
I drink more water. I have that big glass of that coffee. I have that big glass of water. I'm also very conscious about getting enough fruits and vegetables every day. It's really easy not to. Like, especially on days when you're in a rush, it's so easy to not get enough fruits and vegetables. And so I'm just very conscious of that. And then also that's another way you're getting hydrated. There's more water. So
yeah,
keep drinking the glasses of water. So it's kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me. That's how I do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's important for sure. And with that being said, you said you're working on a book. So is it coming out soon or is it like in progress?
There will be, it's actually 2 books, Passion Pantry for him and Passion Pantry for her. They are, they're companions to one another. Or if you are in a same-sex couple or you are single, then you have your book that suits you. Yeah, and it's all about this idea of eating. It's really about the concept of stocking your kitchen for success, for better energy, more desire, being more present, all of those things. And it's about how can you stock your kitchen to have success.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because I mean, even the one thing that I thought was really cool is the list that you made for both men and women, you know, like the 10 things that you can eat, because I think when it comes to food and changing habits, like it's something that we gradually have to do because it's hard. It's hard to start a new eating habit and to change. But like you said, I think it's better to start now before something happens, because that's usually what we end up doing, right? Yeah. Right. And so what is your motivation behind creating these books? Like what motivated you to even start write the first book?
So I really wanted to do, I wanted to take these lists of the 10 best foods. I wanted to take that concept and make something bigger out of it. I wanted to do a book, and I thought it was going to be a book on the 10 best foods for women and the 10 best foods for men, or 2 separate books. And then I just kind of realized that, well, it's not just about telling people about these foods and their sexual health. It's really incorporating it into your whole. It's a lifestyle thing. It's not a nutrition lecture. It's a lifestyle choice. And I realized that it really starts with how you shop, how you stock, how you think about your whole kitchen. And it goes from there, so I'm really excited about it. I think it's much more, it's an approach, I think that's more relatable. And I think it's more doable than just telling people, here are foods you need to eat if you want better sexual health. So, yeah.
No, it is. We have to start somewhere. So if we have a list of 10, at least we could be like, okay, well, I don't like all these things, but cause especially when you said bison, like for me, I'm anemic and I'm like listening to you talk and I'm like, something that I can eat instead of beef, because I mean, beef is good and it gives me the iron, but it's also everything in moderation, right? We can't have too much, but if there's alternatives, but I'm like bison. Oh my gosh. I would never think to try bison, but.
By the way, dark chocolate is a good source of iron.
Oh, I like that. That's good. This is the thing for this year. I like that. Yes, for sure. Preaching to the choir. I think I will add that to my grocery list next time I go, for sure. Yeah. So you were saying earlier, if anyone wants to find alternatives for healthy, sexy eating, like making sex more present. I like that term though, being more present and feeling better. Cause you know what, when you don't eat well, you feel sluggish or you've had a long day and you're tired and you're like, right? Yeah. So what are the foods that can increase women's sexual health and for men too? If there's 1 or 2 that you can mention.
Okay. So I mentioned dark chocolate for women. Go for it.
Yeah.
The 2 foods I'm going to do callbacks from earlier. Both kale and chilies are great for women as well. So figure out a way to get that kale in, put it in a soup, whatever.
Yeah.
Smoothie, they work in smoothies. Mm-hmm. And then for men, I mentioned oats, I mentioned bison. Let's give you a third one. Oh, salmon.
Salmon. Yeah.
Salmon's great for men.
You did mention it, but I think it's always good to hear it again. For me, with the short-term memory here, but that's pretty good to start off. And so we can find you online, Amy Reiley. Eat something sexy, right? I have an
exclusive gift for your listeners. Go to eatsomething.com/podcast. It's a really fun exercise to help you better understand not just aphrodisiacs, but food and your relationship with food, how food makes you feel.
I like it. So how food makes you feel. I think that's a great idea. And I appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with food and why it's important to, have a healthy diet when it comes to both sides of the spectrum, right? So yeah. I'm Carlene and this is Diva Tonight with Amy Reiley. So you can check out her website, eatsomething.com/podcast, right? And okay.
Thanks for listening to Diva Tonight. Follow us on Instagram at Diva on the Radio. That's Diva with 2 I's. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok at Diva on the Radio for more clips and conversations you'll love. Want to share your thoughts or send us a message? Text us anytime at divatonight.buzzsprout.com. Until next time, stay fabulous.